All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the Monday Night Football Showdown show here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station, talking all things Saints at the Chiefs. Got Hoopster Title here with me as always. If you're joining us for the first time, we appreciate you. Hit the like on the way in, and then make sure you're subscribed. Saw a tidbit yesterday. Maybe people don't know. It's free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're not talking about the website, just the YouTube channel. Drive for 10,000 is on. We're almost at 8,300. Hoopster, bring you in. We already reviewed yesterday earlier on the Takedown Breakdown. People can go check that show out. But how was your Sunday, and excited for this Monday ahead?
Yeah, Sunday, I mean, it's always good to sit back and watch some football. In terms of results, not my best day, but, you get back on it and try to find success in the next slate. And in terms of, what we talked about yesterday on the show, I think, we kind of nailed it to some degree. I mean, we talked about the Baltimore-Cincinnati stuff and, knowing you'd have to do something a little bit different in that game to get a lot of it, and it ended up being true. I mean, the Burrow double stack, was expensive to go Burrow, Chase, and T. Higgins, but that was, kind of the route to go. I mean, we all like that game. In terms of, where I ended up is probably my third or fourth highest exposed game, but, didn't have the right pieces to go along with it. What really hurt me was that, the Rams-Packers game was not great. And then I took a big stand on the Seattle Giants situation. And those games really never fully got going. I mean, there's some good individual pieces, but I kind of played more game stack stuff yesterday, and it fell a little short. But, got one more game here to finish it up and see what we can find.
Yeah, the week's never over yet. We always say that. Sean knows it. Last night, it's tough on the East Coast. You guys don't even have this in the U.S. with the Atlantic time zone, but I'm not staying up for that game. I still have my lineups in. The first message this morning in Discord was, narrator, he did not win all the money, because I said I would try and pull a hoopster, go to sleep, and wake up to all the money. It did not work out. I could not be like Hoop, be like Mike, if you will. So
I didn't stay up for that game either. It did seem pretty gross. I saw a little bit of it, and I watched like the first quarter. I'm like, you know what, screw this. Like, I'm not going to be tired as hell tomorrow in order to stay up and watch this shit. And it looked like, based on the box score, it was a proper decision.
Yeah, it's been good. We'll see. Another game tonight, though. Title, bring you in, and the chat's already talking about it. Mainly me making up stuff. You can't spell captain without Pat. You could put CPT with it. These captain quarterbacks, though, have been coming through. Another good call last time out on that one. How you doing, Title? What's going on, man?
Yeah, doing well. I also did not stay up, and I mean, I'm on the West Coast. Tampa's 4 hours ahead, Hoop 3, and I still couldn't make it. Halftime, I was out as well. Looks like the proper decision because I lost all my money on that showdown slate. But hopefully get it back today. And, I mean, it's a good slate, I think, because there's a lot of unknowns and I guess a lot of options. Some unknowns for sure, but without Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce looks mispriced a little bit. Quarterbacks, I, again, don't think people really want to play him in the captain spot, especially the car. Mahomes will get some naturally, but yeah, I mean, I think it's another fun slate, big prize pools. Excited to talk football.
Yeah, I'll say it again. I said it on the Tampa Bay Atlanta slate, and I'll definitely say it about this one again, is I love this slate. What we want in Showdown is we want to know what other people are going to do. I feel very good about what people are going to do on this slate when we talk through the captains, the roster construction, all of that. I just want the information on what I think the field is going to do to be able to give myself a chance. And the other night, that OT touchdown to Hodge was Pitts. That was a four-way chop up top that I was involved in. So I was definitely hoping for that. It didn't happen there, but maybe we get it back today. So Hoop, start with you. 5.5-point favorites, Chiefs at home. Still undefeated, by the way. Somehow this Chiefs team, they haven't looked like they should be, but they are. And 43, I think, was the last I saw in the total. So maybe it's up a little bit from there now, but around 43. What's your first thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, obviously, with the Chiefs. I mean, continuing to find success and continuing just to lose key pieces. I mean, losing Pacheco, still found a way to win a football game or two, I think, since he's gone out. Rashee Rice goes down, still finding a way to win football games. And they're just the the best organization in the NFL, probably the best coaching staff in the NFL. They're going to come up with a game plan to probably win this one too. I mean, they're going to lose along the way at some point, but you can't really bank on it at this point. But we're not here to talk wins and losses. We're obviously here to talk fantasy football. And in terms of this slate, basically anywhere you look, you're going to see 3 guys getting all the ownership at the captain position. And then after that, everyone's going to be relatively low owned. I mean, it's going to go to Kamara. It's going to go to Travis Kelce. I think those end up being 1 and 2. Kamara game clearly fits DK scoring perfectly. I mean, if you were to draw up a running back for DraftKings scoring, it would probably be Alvin Kamara. And it's pretty easy to get him in there. I mean, he is the most expensive guy. You can still clearly make it work. I think Travis Kelce is going to be the number 2 without Rashee Rice. We finally saw a productive fantasy game from him when Rice went down, and the targets should be there. I mean, there's just, you look at the other guys, we'll talk about it, that Mahomes will be throwing the football to, and it's just guys that you don't really want to put up top. And then the last option is going to be Patrick Mahomes. He's going to get quite a bit of ownership. And just talking through it, he's definitely my least favorite. I mean, I'm going to have some of him, and obviously curious to get your thought, Mr. Never Mahomes. But you've made it clear. I mean, you've made it very clear that only applies to full slates and main slates. You've made that clear along the way. But I do think after those 3, it's going to be low, no matter where you go. And our ownership shows it. Like after those 3, everyone else 5% or below, 6% or below. And I think that probably ends up being true. I mean, Chris Olave is a name that people will probably want to play, but man, this Chiefs defense, very, very solid. And with these injuries, there's one thing I know from following the Chiefs over the years, they will gladly take a nasty, nasty, ugly win. Saw it last week with the Chargers. Same case here. Like they would be fine with these guys injured, winning these games 17-13 if they could. They'd take that. They'd sign up for that every single game, and they probably game plan for it, to be honest with you. So, maybe that comes into play in terms of roster construction today, knowing that there is a chance for an ugly, nasty, low-scoring game, which is kind of reflected in the total. I mean, a lot of times Chiefs games against competent offenses, the Saints are definitely a competent offense. We'd see this total sitting around upper 40s, maybe 50. It's coming in at 43. I mean, they're going to want to win nasty games with these injuries. So, but just to kind of round up the conversation in terms of what I see the field doing, it's like those 3 at captain for sure. But it is an interesting slate because there are a lot of, I always use the term playable guys. There's a lot of playable guys, a lot of guys that are projected with a decent number on this slate. So when it comes to that, there's a lot of different ways to go.
Yeah, I'm going to get the chat in on it early. I'm curious what people think sort of the score of this game is going to look like, what the final sets up like. So I'll leave it up there for a second. And Title, before I go to you, I will clarify because the chat was talking about it. It's not even it's technically not slate dependent. It's actually the slate at hand, I guess. But Showdown, of course, I'm involved, and I'll be back in on Patrick Mahomes. The joke earlier, like I said, you can't spell captain without Pat. I'll definitely be in because what do we say? It's quarterbacks that spread it around. There's the reason he's never Mahomes on main slates is because he spreads it around. And tonight we've got multiple running back options, multiple receiver options, and we're waiting on some Hardman news, but he did practice in full on Saturday, so we'll see there. Kelce and Gray can even play them both together. So there's like 7 or 8 options that you can use with Mahomes. And I think with Kamara, Kelce, sort of keeping him at least a little bit in check up there is a possibility I'll still be able to be involved and be around the field on a guy like Mahomes. But I do like some of those pass catching options. Title, what's your thoughts on this game? And then you could take it into your captain thoughts as well as these scores start to roll in.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask the QB Showdown master on what he was doing with Mahomes. So you're playing him, I'm going to play him. You got Kirk Cousins right. He backdoored it, or you just said quarterbacks in general at ownership. I X'd it out. Got absolutely killed. You had the Rodgers. I X'd it out. I'm going to X out Carr unless no, I'm Xing out Carr, even if you do.
I'm not in on Carr, so I can give you that information early too. So,
all right, good. I'm not playing Carr, but I'll play some Mahomes. And the nice thing to make a case for him is, yeah, the ownership probably 15%ish, but you have so many ways you can play him because a lot of his options are cheap. They do have a lot of options. There's multiple running backs in play. And I mean, he showed a little legs last week, a little more than he has in the past. So I think you can get unique teams, under 10 dupe teams, without getting crazy and playing some full on punt that might not see the field. So that is the case. And now that you're playing him and I talk it out more, even though I don't love it thinking about the game, I don't love playing quarterbacks, mainly pass or non-rushers in the captain spot. Today I will for those reasons, which means I'll probably be underweight Kamara because I like the pass catchers. If you look at the Stone, which we talked about it for the Bengals game yesterday, the pass funnel, run funnel, it sets up the same spot. Both teams have a D in pass defense, B plus for Chiefs in run defense, B for the Saints. And there's a lot of pass catchers like Olave. Because of his price, he's naturally going to get squeezed. I'll have more Olave to the field than I will Kamara today. Kelsey's the most mispriced in terms of pricing, it looks like, with this role with Rice. But like, give me Olave, give me Shaheed for upside, give me Worthy, who looks overpriced, I think, more in captains, just because I think how Kelsey gets there is like 10 catches. He still looks slow to me. I still don't give me the explosiveness, big play upside. I think the pass catchers, Olave, Shaheed, Worthy, and I'll throw this back to you. Are you going to be playing like Jawan Johnson, Justin Watson, Juju's of the world, Tambo? Because I think that's in play too, and you don't have to get absolutely crazy with a punt play if you do play those guys.
That's one of the tricky things about Chiefs showdown slates is that while those guys work, you just need to be really different with those lineups. Remember our guy, shout out Mark F, got the Millie Maker last year on a Chiefs slate with a Watson captain. Someone asked about Justin Watson in the chat. Is he the not? Yeah, he's going to be popular. People know they can play him. He's cheap enough. He's 3,400, 5,100 in captain. But you'd have to, when you go with the cheap captains in these Chiefs games, everyone just jams in the same thing. You'll get Mahomes, Kamara, Kelsey, etc. You sort of land very similarly to everybody else. So you do have to be willing to leave money on the table. But I think some of them are probably going to slip in for very little percentages. But my focus is going to be on Kamara, Olave, Shaheed. No secret on that side. Just stick to the big three, mainly Kamara. I think one of the things about Kamara is, besides blowouts, which you think the Chiefs blow them out, I just don't think the Chiefs have looked good enough to do it. I know it's tough to go into Arrowhead, all that, but I think they can stay in the game pretty healthy on the Saints side, that I think you can go to Kamara there and just get overweight if you like him. So I'm comfortable with that. There's no Taysom Hill. So there's some thought process there on you have less vulturism, if you will, that you have to worry about. So maybe that's a thing. And then on the other side, it's like Mahomes spreads it out more than anything. And some people think he's going to be bad without Rice, and that's possible. He's actually been worse last season and even this season. I think he's like 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. But the takeaway is that also makes him spread it out more, most likely. When Rice was here, it was even more condensed. Now he's gone. There's lots of other options. And to your point, Title, you can get different with the other guys there. These past defenses have both been able to be thrown on. So I definitely have interest in the 3 Saints, Mahomes, Kelsey, and then Worthy probably is the other guy that fits in if I'm picking my top 6 right now. Hoop, extra thoughts from you on captain?
Pretty much agree with you guys on the Saints side. Like, I don't know. I don't want anyone outside of like the core 3 that you guys mentioned, like Kamara, Olave, Shaheed. The one that definitely stands out is Shaheed. Like, clearly last year is more of like a gadgety type player and, just a couple bombs here and there. But, man, they're making a concerted effort to get him involved in the games, coming off an 11-target game. And he's getting these rush attempts, too. He had 2 rush attempts for 14 yards. And then 2 games ago, he had 3 for 13. They use him on the end around thing. So, like, not only does he get the bomb targets, but he's getting like some of the shorter stuff as well. So I think he's definitely interesting. And in terms of, which Saints guy that I'm probably most overweight on in the captain, it's probably him. I think it's going to be a little difficult to get way overweight on Kamara, regardless of how much you like him, because the ownership is there. He's probably the highest owned, probably between 20 and 25%. And then he is also the most expensive, 11.4. Now, you can definitely make it work if you want, but yeah, I'm probably with Title on that. I'm probably just going to be around the field, most likely. Haven't built my teams. I'll be doing that after, but probably mostly around the field on a guy like Kamara. But the Shaheed thing definitely stands out to me. And you look at it, he's priced right by Travis Kelsey. And a lot of people build their teams, they put captain in first, but we know Kelsey's going to have a lot of ownership up there. Like going to Shaheed, I think makes a lot of sense. Their price difference isn't all that much. So in on those 3, in on the Mahomes. I just don't think I'm going to get all that crazy at captain today, to be honest. Just looking at this, it's just going to be like the core guys. I think it's all right on a slate like this because there's so many other playable guys where you're going to be able to get different. We're going to have so many Chiefs pass catchers that we can look at. They're going to be using 3 running backs probably today as well. So 3 different running backs there. There's just so many different options. You have multiple tight ends in play for the Saints as well with Taysom Hill out. So there's a lot of different ways to go in flex. I just don't think I'm going to be getting cute in the captain spot.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. I'm going to take a second there just to break something else down because, we didn't hit the likes and the engagement yesterday on the show. So people missed out on the Stone, but the Stone has the report cards on it. We just reviewed this on the show earlier. We talked about the Ravens being an F against the pass. And the guys that we had highlighted on the Stone, there was only 3 for the Bengals. They were Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. No surprise. The run D against them, like if you played Henry, those lineups still found their way to the top in many places because you still got to fit the other pieces around it. And the Stone showing some report cards today that lean into a lot of what we just talked about at captain. And there is a new promo. So I'm going to let people know about it now. It's using code NHL15 to celebrate NHL coming back tomorrow. But just want to talk to you quick about this. You do get 15% off any membership. And we highlighted that. It's all access, Shiptimizer plans, weekly, up to annual, whatever you decide you want to get in on, you can lock in 15% off. And the key with that is that if you play, nobody really just plays NHL. I don't know anybody who just plays NHL DFS. They probably play a second sport. All access is $69. You get it down to $59. It's less than $2 a day to sign up. You'll have access to the Stone for all the sports. We're coming with NHL Stone. We've got one coming for NBA just around the corner. The only thing we don't have is Shiptimizer for NHL yet. Now, when that comes into play, you can upgrade at that time and get it added on. But just want to note that that's certainly something that we're going to be working on. So take that $69 down to $59, or just use it on a weekly plan and lock in the cheaper weekly rate. But Hoop, another thing with that is I do see some rough pass defenses here on the Stone. I know we're not pulling it up on the Showdown slate, but just in general, there is an opportunity for Olave, Shaheed, Worthy. If you can trust one of Juju or Watson or something on that side, definitely looks like we could see that. You didn't really talk about it, but how do you see the total playing out here? The chat really liked the Vegas total. They had 23-20, a bunch, and then some people had the big 30-20 type game.
Yeah. I do have the dry run ready to go too, so I can share that if you want to get into that now or wait. So I just
want to know what you think the total is going to be first.
Yeah, so as I said, I think the Chiefs want to win ugly games. I mean, I think 43 is probably pretty good number. I just don't see this being a shootout sort of game. So like 43, or I guess I would take the under. If I had to put money on this game, I would take the under just because I know that's the sort of game that the Chiefs want to play. They're the better team. They likely are able to dictate the direction it goes. So I would personally be taking the under if I was going to bet it. Now, I'm not betting the over-under on this game, but if I was, it would go to the under.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, and that's why I asked it, and then we'll go to the dry run, just because that's the other thing about these types of games. With the players that we have at hand here, you could set up some pretty good lineups where it doesn't matter if it's a high-scoring or a low-scoring game. You just get there on the PPR points alone. You get a couple guys in there like Kamara. You get Travis Kelce if you think he's going to rack up the catches, a kicker or 2 in there. Like, you could start filling out your lineup pretty quickly and just land wherever your captain lands. And if you think it's a low-scoring game, it can hit, or that could be how they get there in the higher-scoring game. So I like that about these two teams as well. So I said earlier, I do like this slate. Title, did you have anything else to add before Hoop goes into the dry run here?
No, I was just going to mention for the NHL, if you like baseball, it's just like baseball. It's about stacking certain lines, power play. There's a very clear roster construction format. We have great content over here. So a sport many don't play, but hey, the niche sports, if you really grind it and get in the weeds, that can be the most profitable one. So shout out Nate's in there. He's ready.
Yeah, Sean's ready too.
Yeah.
The other thing too, you said about that, just real quick, and then Hoop, you can go through it, but just the education course is going to come soon. Nades and myself are going to record it so that people will have a better idea hopping into it there for that. And then also just in general, like you said, being able to stack it up. We're going to really save you time. The Stone is going to have the line matching on it. It's going to have the projections, the ownership, everything that you kind of need, even if you are just hand building and building out a few lineups. Tomorrow, 3-game slate, $50K up top. Be very easy to put your stuff together. That'll be live before the slate starts tomorrow.
$5 too. $5 in that contest. 31,000 people. It's actually, it's all top heavy, but hey, throw $10 in there and you have a chance at 50.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Hoop.
Yeah. All right. So got the dry run up here and pretty much what we expected. 3 primary captains. We got Mahomes, we have Kamara, and we have Kelce. 30%, 25, 16%. So they're taking up all but, I don't know, about 25%. So the 75% basically going to those three, which is pretty much what we expected. So this is kind of on point. I do think Kelsey, Kamara end up getting more ownership than Patrick Mahomes. But our dry run has 30% Mahomes, 26 Kamara, Kelsey at 16, and then we got Juju, Worthy, Shaheed, and Olave. And I do think down here seeing Shaheed and Olave coming in lower ohm without changing anything probably is true. Like these guys are going to be, I don't know, 5, 6, 7% most likely. Like I just think that's what's going to happen. So Shaheed for sure definitely stands out as a solid option for me. Now let's go to the flex and see if we're just getting, again, I talk about all the time, the main thing I do when I do these dry runs is go to the flex. And is there like just some random $200 guy that I'm getting a shit ton of exposure to? Because if that's the case, I want to cap it. And then these captain numbers could be a little bit flawed. Not necessarily seeing that because Juju is definitely playable today. He's 2,800. He has a very solid projection. He's showing up in 70% of lineups. Like, am I going to play Juju in 70% of lineups? The answer to that question is no, I'm not going to play him in 70. But, we could go ahead and what I do here, if you are going to start building off this, cap it. Say I only want 40%. And then when you go to rerun it, the most you'll get is 40%. We have shown Mahomes, Kelsey, Kamara, Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, Worthy, Watson, Carr, Olave. So it's all the guys that you kind of want alongside, some of these other players. So nothing crazy in the dry run. Like I would go and do this, run it again, and then probably some of these cheaper captains show up a little more often because we're eliminating 20% of lineups with a $2,800 guy that shows up pretty good, but everything checks out as in line. And again, probably pretty much what we expected and what we talked about in the opening, where these three guys, Kelsey, Kamara, Mahomes, are going to get a big chunk of the ownership. And, based off my rough math, it looks like right around 75% of our lineups have one of those three, which means everyone else on the slate is going to come in with low ownership at the captain position. So this just kind of verifies our initial beliefs, I would say.
Yeah. Also, I will add, again, if you have the stone, you get to see this very easily, but just to note it, we've got those three captain options coming in over 55% of the time optimal. So the Shiptimizer is just lining up and giving us overweight stances on what we expect to be the optimal options anyway. But like Hoop said, if you just want to get in around the field or slightly over, you can get unique with those versions of those captains. And then you just end up getting more Olave, more Shaheed, more Worthy. And you could call it a day. Even if you wanted to have a smaller pool today, that's like 6 captains that you could use and feel pretty good about your spot. And then maybe you want to add in one of Kareem Hunt or something like that and use 7 captains and come in a little bit less on the other guys up top and still spread it out that way. But Title, anything to add with the dry run there that you saw?
No, I think that's just really good to do. I like how Hoop does it. And then like you saw, when you had 80% Juju or whatever, I don't want 80% Juju either. Mess with that min-max stuff right there. Like, it's only giving me 5% Kamara captain. I know I want 20%. Bump that to 20%. Like, an optimizer is a tool. The Shiptimizer is a tool. You tell it what to do. If you don't want to leave at least 200 in salary. You can have salary constraints, ownership constraints. So, but I do like the dry run. 80% Juju, little too much for me. Like Coop said, the min-max min-max column is something I use a lot.
Yeah, so I did make that adjustment and reran it. So I capped Juju at 40. His projected ownership is 20. If you really like him, I think 40 is probably a pretty fair number. What did that do to our captains? Just kind of shuffled them around a little bit. So now it's more Mahomes instead of Kamara, and Kelsey kind of remained the same, but we're still looking at 70 to 75% of our teams with Mahomes, Kamara, Kelsey captains, which again is what we kind of anticipated in the opening when we broke it all down.
And remember, this is a dry run, so there's no randomness on it. When you build with tournaments, there's going to be randomness on it a little bit, so you wouldn't see usually 80% Juju or whatever. So,
yeah. And I was just going to say too, you can also, Hoop's just not doing it right now, but he can easily go in and cap those captains. If he says there's no way I want 40% Mahomes, let me just put 25 on him. Put 25 on all those three or 20 on the other two, and you'll start to get more of the secondary options where you'll actually end up overweight on them. And that's just another thing what makes this tool, Shiptimizer, is just much easier to help you build these lineups out. Even if you're only building 3 to 5, you build off this, look at some of the lineups, and then consider some of the other factors, the ownership, to the projection, guys under certain percentage owned, all those caps that you see in there and that you can look at. What happened there, Hoop?
Yeah, so we capped those ones, and then it just gets spread out a ton, really, when you rerun it, which I did. So Mahomes is capped at 25, Kamara 20, Kelsey 20, and then it just spreads out basically everyone else. 7 for Juju, 5 for Worthy, 5 for Carr, 4 for Olave, 4 for Shaheed, and then you start to get down to some of these scrubs. P. Ryan, Harrison Butker gets a little bit. So it really just starts spreading it out. No one else really emerges to the top as like the fourth guy. It just spreads it out amongst everyone else. And everything kind of looks in line over here in the flex as well. So, yeah, somewhat interesting. It's fun to play around with.
It's always good to see it. I mean, this question, Josh, you've been here with us supporting a long time, so I appreciate it. But nobody knows the answer to that. We'll know when the slate's over. That's the whole point, right? There's no way to say, well, if he gets 30, you'll definitely need him. You could have said that yesterday about, Burrow, and then Chase has the massive game, and it's Chase that's up top instead, or whatever. If that had been a showdown slate, you just don't know until things. People would have thought Higgins would have been needed until he wasn't needed behind Burrow and Chase. Like, you just won't know that. And if you people say, oh, but he'll only get 20, and then you don't need him, well, then just don't build with him. It's how you think it's going to look and how you think it's going to go is most certainly the way to do that there. So just one answer to that question. I will say to Ricky's point here, and I just added it over to my slate plan just so I don't forget about it after. But one thing about Kareem Hunt today, if you get a feeling that's how it could go, pretty good leverage to Mahomes on his own team, because probably steal the passing touchdowns by running it in. And then also opposite side of Kamara, who's also going to be popular up top. He's in the opposite side of the script. He is the home favorite, all of that. And we're currently showing him at like 4 or 5%. I think it's because people are scared of P. Ryan or some of the other stuff that's going on there. But I still think it will be Kareem Hunt myself too. So I like that. A guy like P. Ryan, you're taking a risk, but you also get the what we call paying up for probability. You're guys like him, Worthy at 9,000. Maybe even some people with Shaheed. I don't know, not as much. People like Shaheed, but at least in captain, that'll keep Shaheed down at 12K. But where you're paying up for the probability is you're paying up to a number that doesn't feel safe or comfortable. Therefore, you end up getting them at lower ownership. Title, any extra thoughts on that? But I think the Hunt one is kind of interesting up top before we go in position by position.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I feel like everyone thinks, and I agree that it is going to be Kareem Hunt. Like Carson Steele fumbled. P. Ryan feels like a third down back, 2-minute back. Hunt knows the offense, he played well. So everything points there. But I think he could get steam, I guess is what I'm trying to say. 7.4K, starting running back for the Chiefs, solid touchdown prop. And in larger field stuff, and I feel like this is exactly you, Tambo, on both sides. You always play these dusty guys, but they're going to be on the field. Jamal Williams, Carson Steele, P. Ryan. It feels really gross to hand build any of them. If I'm playing 5 teams or less, maybe I don't. But in the largest field stuff, the flagship to win all the money, it feels like that's all the leverage. If Kamara doesn't get there, maybe Jamal runs one in. There's no Taysom Hill. He has a better chance that way. Or maybe Carson Steele, like Andy Reid. Who knows? When it's not Pacheco, when it's the Clydes of the world, when they've had their starting running back out, they went by committee, rode the hot hand before. And, man, P. Ryan, way overpriced, it feels like, for 6'4". Bucker right below. Groupie right below, and then Carson Steele at 4.4 feels a little overpriced too with Watson, Juju, the defense's kickers there. So, I mean, I'll probably be underweight Kamara. Their offensive line's banged up. He's really expensive. I'll go the other spend ups more so. Doesn't mean I'm fading Kamara, but I'm going to go back to you on this. Are you playing the P. Ryan Steels to leverage off Hunt, who I think does catch steam as everyone thinks he's the running back one, which seems like it.
Yeah, I just think he's a better captain play. If Kareem Hunt gets there, it's double leverage on Kamara and Mahomes' popular lineups. Just no way it's close. That's why I like Rance's comment. Appreciate you in the chat. It's all good. But again, no one knows, to your point. That's why we love this game. That's why there's still an edge to this game, but you can build accordingly. That's the whole point. If you're building with Kareem Hunt and the captain, you're probably not playing P. Ryan in the flex. You're saying it was a Kareem Hunt game. He got there. That solves that problem. But to Title's point, if in the flex I land on P. Ryan instead of Hunt, well, that's naturally going to bring me in at lower ownership, leave $1,000 on the table. Maybe it's him and not Hunt. He gets all the dump offs, all that thing. It could be anything along those lines. So yeah, I'm definitely using those guys, not in captain, but in flex for sure. Jamal Williams. You can play some of these guys too together. Like, the Chiefs can use a lot of, they go in between 11 and 12 personnel. So if you play Kelsey and Gray, you can play them together. Like it's a combo pack. 8,600 is expensive, you say, or like maybe it's somewhat expensive for Kelsey, but Noah Gray is only 2,600. So again, build accordingly. Like you said, yeah, maybe you have a trailing game script. That makes sense too. So everything you do in fantasy sports is going to be a guess because nobody knows the answer till it happens. But it's about strategy and process and building accordingly, and then building your portfolio how you want to build it. I build some safety into it, meaning I know they're going to dupe up a little bit more, but they just look too good to pass up with projection, game script, everything I want. And then I got a nice chunk of my portfolio that's pretty unique and could be in a 4-way chop or a solo ship or something like that. That's just how I build. So you have to have a process. You have to have a way to build like that. That's just what it's all about. And if you go to shipitnation.com, free on the front page right now, send me lesson 1. You just put in your email. We talk all about that in the 5-day free email education course. So Hoop, I'll kick it over to you. Anything else you want to add? If not, let's go into quarterback, running back. You can start taking us into the positions.
Yeah. Just wanted to touch on the Kareem Hunt conversation because I think it's very interesting. I talked about it, how I think this could be a nasty game and the Chiefs want to win these nasty games. Well, who's the guy that benefits the most from like a nasty grinded out game? I think it's Kareem Hunt. Like he got a majority of the work last time out, 16 touches compared to Steele's like 3 touches. And we know what P-Ryan's going to be at this point. So I'm not worried about them grinding out a nasty game with P-Ryan as the running back. So I think the Kareem Hunt stuff is very interesting. And he's really, no matter where you look, like he's not projecting with like a crazy high number by any means. So I don't imagine people are going to be on him at a high rate, especially in the captain. So I think it is very, very interesting. What's the number? I just wanted to pull it up because I don't have it in front of me. Do you have the projection number for Kareem Hunt by chance, like right in front of you? I'm trying to pull it up.
10.4 in the flex.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a number that if you don't force it in, you're not going to get them in the captain spot. So I do think that is an interesting way to go about this, especially if you're buying into the game script like I am, and sounds like you guys are as well, where you could see KC just winning like a nasty, ugly sort of game.
But again, I will say, because I agree with you, but high-low, it really doesn't matter. The point is the other leverage that you're getting. That's the whole point of Showdown in the script. What would hurt Patrick Mahomes, who's going to be popular up top, and would also could hurt Kamara? Now, he could just start getting dump-offs when they're up, but just say if Kareem Hunt gets in, he's $6,000 less than Kamara. So you could say that it's because Kareem Hunt scores 2 touchdowns. You could use them without Mahomes and then put Kamara into the flex and still have more money to spend, but have a captain that actually projects quite conservatively, Hoop, just because we also have projection going to P. Ryan and Steele since we don't know. So to your point, if you agree with that, you just boost him. You end up getting him in the spot, and it kind of makes perfect sense. I like that breakdown that you just did. That makes a lot of sense for this one.
Yeah, certainly. So in terms of the quarterback, not much more to add. Like I'm good with Mahomes, captain. I'm good with Mahomes. Flex, the talking point behind Mahomes is very solid. With Rashee Rice has been his guy. Like has been absolutely been his guy. When Rashee Rice is out, like you get back to the mentality, the game theory strategy that you've broken down, a few of these showdown slates where you want these quarterbacks up top that are willing to spread it out. And certainly that's the case tonight with Patrick Mahomes. If he has a good passing game, it could go to 5-6 different guys. Like legitimately, there's so many, when we talk about wide receiver, you'll see so many of these guys have a decent enough projection to consider them. So fine with him up top, fine with him in the flex. And I'm actually glad that they put him at like 11K. We've seen these quarterbacks, non-running quarterbacks like him, get priced way down. I'm glad that he's 11K. I'm glad that Kamara's 11.4. Derek Carr, fine flex option. I'm excited to get him in there. Like, no, but like quarterbacks have such an advantage. They get to touch the ball basically every single offensive play. So I'm fine with him in the flex. Not going to play him in the captain. Talked about the running backs a lot. Kamara definitely, Kamara can be successful fantasy wise in just about any sort of game script where the Saints win by 3 touchdowns, where the Saints lose by 3 touchdowns, and everything in between. Kamara can have big monster games. He's had a ton of monster, I mean, not just like 30 fantasy point game. This guy's had multiple like 40, 50 fantasy point games over the course of the last couple seasons. Need him in the mix in all formats. Just talked about the Kareem Hunt thing. I think he's a phenomenal play. If the Chiefs have success, if the Chiefs are playing with the lead, I think he has a direct path to not only have success, but to be the highest scoring Chiefs player on the slate. 7-4. His projections moderate all around the industry. So I don't think it's going to be a situation where we see a bunch of steam going to Kareem Hunt. Like, I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think it remains in check, and I think he's a really good play. P. Ryan at 6-4, I actually don't love that all that much because I'm playing this game script where I think the Chiefs win, but want to win ugly. And to me, P. Ryan doesn't really fit into that. And like 6,400 for him just feels gross. Carson Steele, maybe. I just think it might be Hunt, to be honest with you. And that's why I'm just not going to be as excited with guys like Steele and P. Ryan, because Steele still has a price. It's not like we're talking like a $2,000 running back. Like, he's 4,400. He's got to now compete with some of these wide receivers that I like that we'll talk about in a minute. He's got to kind of compete with the kickers, who you guys know I love my kickers. And he's got to do something at 44. So not thrilled with that. Jamal Williams, touchdown or bust type play. I mean, he's got to get in the box really to pay it off. Probably have some, not overly excited.
Like a Hayward last night too, though. The chat was just baffled the fact that like a guy like him gets a touchdown and still isn't needed. Yeah. I didn't watch a second of the game. It was just too late with the super delay, East Coast heavy, all that. But I mean, like, that happens all the time. Yeah. I think people forget again. It's all how the rest of the game goes. Same answer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I'm with you on that. I mean, you gotta probably sometimes do more than that, more than just score the touchdown. So really, this position, if I'll have some of the other guys, don't get me wrong, but if I had just Kamara and Hunt at a high level, I'd feel pretty good. Like, I just don't love these other pieces, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the next question was, how many flags did the Chiefs get tonight? Yeah. That's always a question in a primetime game, but doesn't really affect us much for Showdown, just having some fun with it. I think the other thing, though, to your point, like, that was kind of like Mike's question earlier, or sorry, Josh's question earlier. Like, he mentioned the no Taysom thing. I love that call. But when he asked earlier about, like, at what number do you not need him, it's the same thing. If people told people last night that Hayward gets in the box, everyone's slamming him in because, like, I got a value play that's getting a touchdown, I'm set. You got to think about the slate at hand. Hoop's thinking about it, that it could be an ugly game. That's how he's going to build some of his lineups, at least. Other people, I think our guy Kenny was in the chat earlier. He's playing in the highest stakes, and he was saying, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I just think that the Chiefs will struggle more than Vegas does, and the Saints D ain't bad. If you think that, build towards that. Yeah. And I know you will. I'm saying for others watching. Certainly,
a lot of those questions are all slate dependent. I mean, the most recent example, look at the Tampa Bay Atlanta game. If you had a random dude that fell in the end zone and had 7 fantasy points at the end of the slate, he was unneeded. Like, the minimum score in optimal was what, like 15 from one of the kickers or somewhere in that range. Like, if you get a high scoring shootout sort of game, like, you need more than just one touchdown.
Yeah, it's what I'm trying to say. When however you see it playing out, or if you're like me and want to build in sets for a couple different ways you could see it playing out, that's what I would do. Title, let you be quiet there for a little bit on this stuff. I'll let you hop in, man. Your thoughts on any of the things we're talking about and running back position moving on.
Yeah, I thought we were at running back when you threw it to me first, so I threw it to you on, like, I'll be playing the P. Ryans, the Carson Steeles as pivots in the largest field stuff because, like you said, if P. Ryan outscores Kareem Hunt, you leave the 1K, and then there's even more than 1K plus on the table. Like, that's when you're talking 4-way chop instead of 40-way chop and things like that. But I'm with Hoop. Like, I can see, like, if I'm playing 5 teams, I probably am not playing Jamal Williams, Carson Steele, or P. Ryan, because I am in agreement thinking I know what Andy Reid's going to do is Kareem Hunt, because that is what they did last week. But I also think that they will get steam. Like, I think Kareem Hunt could be like 6-7% a captain, 35% in the flex. That is kind of a lot when you're talking a third of the ownership for the other guys. So, and also I'll throw it back on this because I talked about my running back thoughts already. I think I'd rather play those guys, and when we get to receiver, the Cedric Wilsons of the world, the Sky Moores of the world. What about you, Tambo? Would you rather play Sky Moore, Cedric Wilson, or would you rather play P. Ryan, Carson Steele, or Jamal Williams?
I forgot Cedric Wilson even played football, so I don't think I'll have any of him, but I would play Sky Moore. Again, we got to know more to get to that situation though. So, that's
we won't. We won't know before the game probably. Or I'm assuming McCole plays and all that.
Yeah, I'm saying that's what I want to know. I know he practiced on Saturday, but there was a lot of talks. Even like I said, I saw earlier today on X about other guys that were moved up to the first squad and playing and practicing with them. So we'll have to see. But I just these other guys, I'm just not as interested in. I think it's going to be what Hoop said earlier and what I said. Will some of these guys slip in? Probably. But when you've got Derek Carr, Kamara, Jamal Williams at least has a real chance. Olave, Shaheed, Jawan Johnson, Mahomes, Hunt, Worthy, Juju, Watson. I mean, one touchdown falling in the box ain't doing it tonight in my world. Small, low score or high score, so I don't see it for these guys.
Yeah, I just realized last week P. Ryan scored a touchdown. I didn't know that. So P. Ryan scored a touchdown, 7 fantasy points from a pass-catching running back, supposedly. He got 7 and scored a touchdown. That's not encouraging. Again, different game. Anything could happen. But, that's if he does that tonight, that's probably not good enough. And he scored a touchdown. It'll
be very small amounts for the builds that I'm getting super unique in title. You can go to wide receiver, by the way, after this, but just to say it, those guys will fit in. But, I'd much rather have Jawan Johnson, a guy that I think could get.
The field will too, I think.
What's that?
I think the field will too is the thing there. I agree with you. I think Jawan, Gray.
Sub 20%. People are looking for this 1% Tipton. Good luck. It's so unlikely that that's ever going to be on the winning lineup. And if it is, great. But I can just play a 20% or an 18% Jawan Johnson and leave money on the table, have a different captain, leave out other pieces, build it unique. Again, it's not that he's going to be unique. I'm saying I would rather for the cheap guys, you need 6 guys that break 10 points on this slate. And these, one guy getting a 7-point touchdown probably doesn't happen. That's how I'm seeing the slate right now. So the ownership doesn't really matter when you need the highest scoring lineup. The ownership matters to get leverage and find your way to the top. I just don't think I'll have as much of those guys to answer your original question.
Well, I think one of the last points you said is the most important of you don't think 7 points can be on the winner there. And then you have to you build that way. Because Sterling Shepard team, even in that Tampa Atlanta game that went absolutely nuclear, Sterling Shepard's 8 points was on the winner for the longest time until the kickers actually did get there. And was it shipped in single entry stuff. That Mooney Shepard team that just jammed in both quarterbacks, Mike Evans, because it was the raw points up top what it got you. So, and the reason I brought all this up is because receiver, I don't want to play Cedric Wilson. I don't want to play Sky Moore. Those guys might hardly step on the field. Some of the best DFS players in the world, that 150, the biggest contest, will be playing those guys because if they do anything, that is how you get unique shippers. I think it's pretty easy, though, if you're playing 50 teams or less like me. Olave, I love. I like Shaheed. I'll play him some Mason Tipton, though. He looks like the wide receiver 3 right now at 1K. He'll be low owned. I like him more than Cedric Wilson, so I'll play him 5%. You're going to be with the field. G side, there's Worthy. There's Juju now working in the slot, taking Rice's role. Watson, Hardman. I think Worthy's price tag keeps his ownership moderate for sure. I'll be playing him both captain and flex. Justin Watson feels like Juju's not good at all. So I'm going to say Justin Watson over Juju. But at the end of the day, Juju will be running slot routes with Patrick Mahomes. And I guess circling all the way back, the more I talk about the slate, the more I do like Mahomes captain for the fact that there's a million ways you can play it with him and you can get unique that way. So, probably just those 6 receivers and then Tipton would be 7.
Yeah, maybe you can talk me into some Tipton as the 3 because I don't like Wilson and the other stuff. But like I said, even if I get 5%, it's going to be very strategic how it's used. It's just going to be plugged in. It's to make a lineup that's chalky, unique. If you get 5% on 150, you're getting a few different combinations, maybe a couple different captains, whatever it might be. At least you had a chance if it falls in there. And that's how it's going to build on the MME stuff. But most playing a single lineup, you don't need to go you're just building for what you want. So if you're playing to win, I still don't think that's part of the conversation. But Hoop, I'll get your thoughts on. As far as the last quick comment though, that's why the Mahomes captain makes so much sense. We don't use him on a main slate because he spreads it too much and it's hard to figure out. On a 1-game slate on a guy that spreads it more than anybody else, that's why he's getting the ownership. He's clearly going to be solid.
Yeah, in terms of the pass catchers, talked about the Saint stuff, Olave, very solid option. I really like the Shaheed play. And then, Tipton will be in the player pool. It's just a matter of how much I get on him. I'm not going to prioritize him, but I'm not going to exclude him, I guess, if that makes sense. The interesting part of the slate for sure is the Chiefs pass catchers, because I guess a lot of people just naturally say, all right, well, Worthy is now like the number one over Rashee Rice. I kind of think Worthy benefits more with Rice being in than Rice being out. It's not like I just don't envision a game. I guess there's game scripts where this would play out, but I just don't envision a game plan where Worthy's going to get like 10 targets or anything like that. I think his role remained the same, but now there's more attention on him. So I'll have some, but I'm not very excited about Worthy tonight. The guys I'm very excited about, though, are Watson and Juju. I think one of these two, Kelsey probably ends up getting the most targets. Number two, I think, is probably one of these guys, either Watson or Juju. And they're priced very, very cheap. They're going to get some ownership, but it's not like to a crazy number because there's still a lot of question marks and other guys involved. But if I had to put money on who I think it's the second most targets in the Chiefs offense tonight, it's probably either Watson or Juju. Yeah, Juju hasn't looked good, but he has a history with Mahomes, and I think that does go a long way. A lot of the stuff that Rice has done in the field, it's like these breakaway plays where Mahomes is out of the pocket and he just finds Rice. They have a great chemistry. Like, can he rekindle some of that with Juju? I think it's possible. So I really like the Watson Juju plays, and they're not coming in at crazy ownership. I mean, Watson's they're probably both high teens to low 20s, essentially somewhere in that range. So really like both of those guys. And then like the Hardman play, I think great for Mahomes captain stuff. Sky Moore, fine for Mahomes captain. I'll play him in other lineups as well, but that's primarily where I want to use guys like Hardman and Sky Moore. Assuming we have to get clarification that Hardman's in, but it did sound like he was going to play. I mean, it was full practice on Saturday, so I can't imagine he wouldn't be ready to go. So we'll have that hour before lock. I'm operating under the assumption that he's definitely going to be in tonight, but you just need to verify that. But I like these secondary pieces for the Chiefs: Watson, Juju, Hardman, and even some Sky Moore. The last two, though, Hardman, Sky Moore, I think are just better suited. They fit the builds a little bit better in Mahomes captain teams.
Yeah, I like that last point you made. That's where I'll leave it before I go into tight end, because I'll certainly say that's how those guys are going to fit into my builds. Like I said, when it's strategic, how I'm using them, that's what it's going to be. That's how you do the Mahomes stuff. You can triple stack them with like three of his receivers, like quadruple stack, I should say, like him with three more, and do it that way and leave money on the table. There's lots of different ways you can get unique with those captain teams with Mahomes, and you're hoping he has a huge passing game with 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, and they're all spread out. So that's all I have there. They hit on it pretty good. I'm not going to waste time saying the same stuff twice. But the Juwan Johnson thing I want to bring up now that we're going to tight end and I'll start it is like, I'm going to try not to play any lineups that have 50K with Juwan Johnson. Like in the flex or the captain, you're just drawing dead. That's the point that, Title was making earlier. It's not like he's going to be low owned. He's going to be 14 to 20%, somewhere probably in that range. He's just way too cheap. But when you go to him at captain, which we already hit on earlier, but just to say it quickly again, is like, that's the problem you just run into unless you're leaving like 3,000 on the table and getting different that way, then sure. Or maybe Juwan Johnson at captain without Derek Carr. But again, for him to get the 15 points, it's, he probably at least has a touchdown in there. So it's tough. Maybe he just gets you like a 6 for 80 and you do get that and it's 14's enough. I don't know, but I have a harder time doing anything like that with him. Foster Moreau right there at lower ownership. I think he's fine. I'm going to definitely use him, but strategically. And then Kelsey and Gray, the biggest thing about them is just being able to play them both on the same team. You could play Kelsey at captain, Gray and flex, and be just fine. There'll actually be time. I just don't know how it's going to work with Rice out, but I think that Gray was swapping in and out for was either Watson or Juju that he was swapping in and out for on the 11 and 12 sets. So just keep that in mind as well, but definitely interested in Kelsey and Gray together, even if they're both in flex, one at the captain, whatever it might be. I definitely have interest in those two guys. Title, anything else to add for tight end or any extra thoughts?
No, I think, pretty straightforward, and they're definitely, good point. Chiefs will run more 12 personnel stuff. And at the end of the day, Noah Gray, he's actually athletic, big tight end that can catch the ball. Like, he can play in those 3 receiver sets, like you said, for a Juju or something. So they use him around the red zone, and you can easily play him with Kelsey. Kelsey looks like one of the most mispriced players on the slate at 8,600 with so much PPR upside on DK without Rice there. Juwan Johnson overtook Foster Moreau for the starting tight end. He just seems way too cheap. I agree with your point. 50,000 lineup with Juwan Johnson feels probably negative EV. And then Foster Moreau, Williams, And then price adjusted, kind of like Carson Steele and P. Ryan too, just backups that if they fall in the box, have a chance to be on the optimal at low ownership.
Steven had a good question here. So before I go to Hoop on the same thing, if you go to the site, anybody, even a non-member now, you can highlight Shiptimizer drop down at the top, go down to Shiptimizer tutorial. It just says tutorials under that tab. You'll be able to see all the tutorials, and there is a group anchor tutorial. It's just like 5 minutes long just to see how to do that and use it. So for members, but even for non-members, you can go find out how to do that. Hoop, go to you on these tight ends, and then if nothing else crazy, take us into the kickers and Ds.
Yeah, nothing really to add. I mean, I'd say some of the most mispriced guys definitely on the slate. Kelsey, phenomenal play, all formats, 86. It's funny, he goes from like unplayable, and I know it's only a 1-game slate, so it's a little bit different, but like unplayable to the guy now that everybody wants to play, and he's a lock for all these targets and receptions. Just it's crazy how things work, but that is the case. I mean, he's definitely going to get a lot of targets here. They don't have any other options. Does he look slow? Yeah, absolutely. Somebody had a good point though earlier. Like he always looks slow, so it's nothing new. It just looks maybe even like slower, I guess.
So, slow people still score fantasy points. You see that Joe Flacco run yesterday?
Yeah, man, that is impressive, man. What Flacco's done.
At least
he didn't look slow.
That is impressive. The old man, he's my age. The old man did not look slow.
All enough, man.
Old man, indeed.
At the end, they had a shot. Justin, we brought this up a little bit earlier, but if anybody missed it, this is what we were saying. I don't know, though. It seems like this information was before Saturday, and then Mecole practiced in full on Saturday. So we'll see. Something to keep in mind. We'll have you covered. We put the inactives in Discord. We cover it. We change all the content if required, or if there's anything we need to update. So we'll have you covered when it comes to that. But I definitely think that's the way to go there. So go ahead, Hoop.
Yeah, and Carr likes these tight ends. So like Juwan Johnson, Monroe, I think, or Moreau, both solid options. 2,200, 1,800, like solid plays, and then Noah Gray for sure. Like he can mix in, and him and Kelsey can be on the field at the same time. Defense and kickers, like I think this could be kind of ugly. I probably end up maybe with a little more defense than I typically do. And again, it's not going to be a point where I just go in there and force in some of these defenses, but I'd be more open to playing defense today than I typically do, just because I do think this could be an ugly type game, but I'm not going to be forcing it in. And then the kickers, I don't really need to speak about the kickers ever. You guys know I'm always in on them. And the people on Twitter like bitching about the kickers being in optimal, it just drives me nuts. Like they've been in the optimal. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but like they're always good plays just because you're talking 1-game slate. They make 1 50-yard field goal. They're more likely than not to be on the field goal. And these kickers nowadays are making the 50-yarders at a much, much higher rate. They're just good plays. Like, I don't care. Like they're solid plays. And the people on Twitter bitching about the kickers high ownership being on optimal, that's soft, man. Super soft.
Yeah, I agree. And also it's the same with the quarterback captains. So I keep going in on it because they're not priced right. Same in the main slate yesterday when I tell everybody. I know that Lamar ended up in one, but even Lamar at 7,500, is that really correct for the MVP of the league? It's just how they're doing their pricing now. You have to adapt. No different than when 2 tight end sets in Millie Maker winners, you started to see 2 tight ends hit again last year when that price wasn't adjusted, when the max price was 5K, 6K, whatever it was that they were going to there. I think it was 6, but maybe a little more. But point being, you have to adjust for the game at hand. We're always obsessed with it. We're always paying attention to it. And he mentioned it again, Justin. That's what I'm saying. We've seen it. We already brought it up. He mentioned it, but he said during the week. So if that was what he saw last week, it's just saying we'll know when the game time comes. So that's the key. The information will always be out in advance of a single game slate. So we will be able to act. If Justin Ross is active and in the mix, you'll want to put him in there in some. If Mecole Hardman's out and mix him into the bunch, I guess it would get more interesting is if Mecole's active and so is a guy like Justin Ross, and they're trying to get him into the mix now with no Rice and all of that. But for me, not going to worry about it until we have to. Anything title you got to add on kickers and Ds tonight?
No, I like him. I mean, the offensive line is really banged up on the Saints side. So I think Chiefs can, especially if they get out to an early lead and make Carr drop back a lot, I think they have plenty of upside like we saw with Steelers D yesterday. Saints D's just naturally low owned, so they're another Jamal Williams type play to get you different and stuff. Both kickers, we don't have to talk about kickers anymore. They do the job. I do want to bring this up and curious both of your thoughts too. I mean, I think it's definitely viable. We've seen Mahomes 14 last game. Like, that might not be enough to get on the slate. He can have a lot of low A-dot targets to his guys to rack up PPR. Kareem falls in the box 2 or 3 times. Maybe you just need Olave and Kamara and stuff. So I think it's viable, but more times than not, I have a QB in my team. So I want your 2 thoughts on that as well.
Man,
It's definitely possible.
Same point that you just made. I agree with you. Like, I'd be more inclined to do it in a game like this, that I could see it being somewhat ugly, but build accordingly. If you're doing that, make sure you're hitting up, probably Kamara, Kareem Hunt, plays like that.
Yeah, I would also say too, like, again, it's all how your ugly game looks to you. And Hoop and I have sort of said this back and forth a couple ways this conversation, but just to note it, like, an ugly slate could mean you need both quarterbacks because their 12 to 15 points could be enough. Versus the opposite is like, again, if it's kind of back and forth, but it's just PPR points being picked up along the way, Kamara could just smash Carr, and you still have like Olave, who caught a couple, and for big yardage, Shaheed, same thing. And then on the other side, it's Kelsey and Kareem Hunt. So you kind of know exactly how you're building it. With Mahomes' ownership tonight in general, and then even Carr 30-ish% in flex or whatever he ends up being, 35% in flex, I think it's fine. Yeah, I always think it's fine to go that way. So certainly something that you could do to get a little bit different. And then, like I said, there's certain guys you can use up top that you don't need to put the quarterback with them as well as a way to get different, where it's just they rack up enough points and it's the other guys involved on their team. So I don't know if you have anything else to add at all, Hoop, but I think that's going to wrap it up for the DK stuff, and then we can get to FanDuel.
Yeah, over on FanDuel, Mahomes obviously I think ends up being the most popular captain. He's 16K. Easy to get him in. Quarterbacks have the advantage over there. We always talk about it. I would be more inclined to play a guy like Derek Carr over on FanDuel opposed to DK in the MVP spot, 14.5. Pretty cheap price tag for a quarterback. Alvin Kamara is more expensive than Mahomes over here as well, 17,000, but doesn't have the advantage of a full PPR. Kelsey at 13K, pretty cheap, I'd say. Olave 12.5, cheap. Shaheed 10K, that's cheap. We like him over on DK, definitely like him on FanDuel. Kareem Hunt though at 12,000, he's up there with Olave, right around Kelsey. I still think he's a solid play over on FanDuel at that price tag. I mean, the price is going to keep his ownership in check a little bit. Kickers defense is always in the same range. Justin Watson, for some reason, is 9,500. Like, that's pretty expensive for Justin Watson. So they kind of bumped him up. But Juju's only 7K. Definitely like that play. Juwan Johnson, 7,500. Moreau 6,500, our Tipton guys 55, Sky Moore 65. So there's a lot of cheap options. If Hardman's in there, 6K. So very similar to DK, where on these Mahomes MVP teams, I'd be more prone to playing guys like Sky Moore or Hardman if he's in, Noah Gray at 7K. So that's kind of a quick little rundown of what we have over on FanDuel tonight.
The King FanDuel shipper, the chopper, but it's
worked out well. Yeah, back-to-back slates. Let's make it a third.
Yeah, it's the only way to do it on FanDuel.
Well, we can try to offset some of the DK losses.
That's what you got to do these days. Title, any final thoughts from you? Any FanDuel thoughts to add, just seeing some of those prices?
Yeah, I will say, like you said, the chopper over there, if there was a slate to have less dupes than usual, I think today's the one, because Mahomes will be by far the most popular MVP, but the pass catchers aren't coming along with it, and you can overstack it. You can leave money on the table if it does end up being the Jujus, Hardmans of the world. Worthy's overpriced at 11K. And then with the bonuses this year, the 100-yard rushing and receiving, I think it makes it even more viable for Olave's 150-yard, 2-touchdown outlier game to outscore the quarterbacks. Shaheed, Worthy, multiple guys that are going to be sub 10%, most sub 5% MVP spot. And we've seen Mahomes get 14. So, yeah, I actually think I play enough out, or my volume I play is by far enough just to play on DK. Like, I could play a lot. Like, DK has millions of dollars you can fill. I play a lot less than that. I think it's a better format. So I don't play FanDuel. But you hand-build stuff, there's definitely an edge on FanDuel. And today is a really interesting one, I think.
Yeah, I like that. Well said with the pricing and stuff like that. But it's the same reason I like the whole slate overall. Both sites, whatever site you're on, I think that's definitely the case. I think you could see it really set up tonight for a unique shipper or something that's really, chopped very lightly, especially with all these other options that we went through. I was trying to think a couple more. Last thing I was going to say on the defenses, could see a double defense night if it's ugly, like Hoop said. Everyone's high on these kickers right now, and no more chance to be higher on them when you got Harrison Butker, who everybody loves on the Chiefs side. The Chiefs builds, that's the other thing I was going to add. Chiefs 4-2s look like by far the most popular. Chiefs captain, and then 3 other Chiefs in the flex with 2 on the opposite side. So keep that in mind. I know some of the chat earlier was talking about liking the Saints side going up against that. Certainly think that's interesting. And the last one was going back to the defenses again, was Mahomes captain, Saints D. Definitely something you can do. The guys, I think the chat mentioned it just a second ago, 5 picks, very surprising. Yeah, last year wasn't that much better. I don't have the numbers in front of me anymore, but if you look at last season, it wasn't great. He still goes on to win the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl MVP, but his overall season numbers, he definitely can make some mistakes. We've seen other good quarterbacks. Lamar fumbled, almost gave away the game yesterday. Josh Allen for the Bills has made a ton of mistakes the last year and a half. So it's hard, man. These defenses are better than you think. They just don't get the credit because we play an offensive game. There's no IDP in our DraftKings leagues or anything like this. So contests, I should say. So just in general, keep that stuff in mind. Certainly something to look out for. It's going to do it for this one, though, guys. Before we get out of here, I want to remind you quick, you can use code NHL15 to lock in 15% off. It means you'll get that price no matter what. It's not a 1-month only deal. You can use it on any deals, football only, all access, whatever you want to use it on, including the Shiptimizer plans if you want access to some of the stuff we showed off on this show. And you can even get it on the weekly. So if you're just wanting to check us out, you won't get the Discord with weekly, but you can upgrade it right away to a monthly or something if you do decide that you want that. So keep that in mind as well. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Hoop, for Title, for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it!